So let me, before introducing Mr. Ambassador, I would like to say a couple words about our activities, our organization in general, to just give you an idea for those who just join us. So this is a broader umbrella organization nationwide. So we have cultural organizations, community centers, dialogue centers, business organizations, business chambers, academician organizations, private schools, and Turkic organization. So nationwide, so we have more than 220 individual institutions from Seattle to Miami. They're all non-profit, non-governmental. One of the highlight of the event last year, we organized at the Willard Hotel. That was the gala reception. So we had about 700 people, and very strong attendance from the Congress. We had 7 senators and 54 congresspersons, as you see some of the pictures on the wall. And our activities really broad. So we have conferences, seminars, panels, roundtables, and just yesterday, one of our component organization, Rumi Forum, by the DuPont Circle, had a Peace and Dialogue Award ceremony. So we had a great crowd there, so we really enjoyed. And just to highlight 2 activities briefly, we organized 35 state capitol house the get-together, basically out of 50 states. So we are really active, really strong to get the word out, to expose the culture in general. And finally, our Turkey trips. We invite the community leaders, elected officials to Turkey for a kind of intercultural tour. And in the course of 7-8 years, we had about 3,000 the leaders all around the United States. We took to Turkey just to interact with them and just to show not just the one country, but the region. Okay, so thanks for your patience. So let me go over the Mr. Ambassador really briefly, and just then just we are gonna hear what he has to say about in general. This is the subset of ambassadorial talk series, because we are celebrating here the 20 years of independence of the Central Asia republics and in the Caucasia region, because they got the independence in 1991. So 2011 is a very important, critical year. So I'd like to get their basically comments and their experience for last 20 years. We started with the Kazakh ambassador, so he was here. So it was a great event. So finally, let me go over the Mr. Ambassador's bio really quickly. And then we are going to start the program with his talk. So Mr. Muktar Djumaliev graduated from National University of the Kyrgyz Republic in 1994 at Department of Economy, and 97 from the law school. In 2002, he got the Master of the International Law Economics degree in the World Trade Institute, Bern University. Mr. Djumaliev started his work at the State Committee on Economy of the Kyrgyz Republic as a senior expert of the Department on External Economics Relations. In 1996, he became an advisor of the Minister of Finance of the Kyrgyz Republic, and in 1997, he was the head of the Department on External Economic Relations, and then he was transferred to the National Bank of Kyrgyz Republic as a Deputy Director on Investments and Coordination of the Technical Assistance. In 1998, he became the first secretary of the Permanent Mission of the Kyrgyz Republic to the United Nations Office and other international organizations in Geneva. In 2003, he worked in the office of the President of the Kyrgyz Republic as an expert of the Economic Policy Department. And 2003, He was the first deputy of the Minister of Foreign Trade and Industry of the Kyrgyz Republic. And in 2004, Mr. Ambassador was the permanent representative of the Kyrgyz Republic to the United Nations office. And in September 2004, Mr. Ambassador has presented the credential as the permanent representative of the Kyrgyz Republic to the World Trade Organization. In June 2010, he was appointed as the first Deputy Chief of Staff of the administration of the President of the Kyrgyz Republic. And since December 2010, he was the ambassador of the Kyrgyz Republic to the United States. And in April 2011, he was appointed as an ambassador of the Kyrgyz Republic to Canada with residence in Washington. So please welcome me to Mr. Ambassador to the podium.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you for your warm welcoming me, and it is a great honor and privilege to me to be here with you. It's my second time, and as it was asked me to speak about the 20 years of Kyrgyzstan's independence since the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, so I was prepared to talk to you and to share with Kyrgyzstan's experience. How was the political situations we passed through this very difficult period, and about our economical challenges. And also I'd like to talk about the Kyrgyzstan's new political reforms. As you all know about that, the 2010 was one of the crucial time for Kyrgyzstan's political change in Kyrgyzstan. Gaining, of course, independence for Kyrgyzstan has been very historical event for us. As you know, the August 31st, 1991, the declaration of the state independence of the Kyrgyz Republic was announced. And on May 5 and 1993, the first constitutions of the Kyrgyz Republic as an independent sovereign state was adopted. On May 10, 1993, Kyrgyzstan, for the first time among the former Soviet countries, has introduced its own currency, SOM. The political situation changed, and the country has embraced democracy and started the process of liberalization of the economy. So Kyrgyzstan was one of the first country who started its negotiating to the World Trade Organization. In 1998 and 1996 we started our reforms, economic reform, and within 2 years of period, so we completed our negotiations and we became the full-fledged member to the World Trade Organization. And so far we are the only member from the Central Asian states who is the member to this organization. Over the 20 years of independence, we went through the thorny and tortuous path of the development. In history, as we know, that there is no high road, and the transition period was very difficult. From socialist planned economy and market economy, from totalitarianism and to democracy. At the turn of the century, and all the countries of the Eurasian continent, including the republics of the former Union, went through this path. In some countries, the transition was smoother and therefore faster than in other countries. We experienced two turning points. First, the revolution of 2005, when the first president was exiled, and then the revolution of 2010, when the second president was ousted. And today I want to be very frank and open in sharing with you with this experience and criticism faced our ex-presidents. The main causes of two people's revolutions was a bitter conflict between the society and the government. The authorities placed themselves above their own people, making themselves unaccountable to the people. They ceased expressing the people's interests is the violation of the principle of freedom and justice that blew up the masses to push them to oppose the dictatorship of the president, the sole control of the country, and the transformation of the state power into the family business. Our fundamental law, the Constitution of 1993, was subjected to endless amendments and revisions. The dismissal of the parliament initiated many changes and rewriting of the constitution on the eve of the election referendums in favor of personal interests both former presidents. The last 20 years are the years of searching, incredible hardship and difficulties, complete change of ownership, learning and accepting of the new forms of management and gaining market knowledges. The changing of the economic landscape, the new trade routes, the entry of business sphere of hundreds of thousands of new producers and traders were all incredibly difficult process for Kyrgyzstan. The survival in a complex environment, completely independent on petroleum, gas, and sometime electricity, threw us back to the pre-Soviet era, and more often than not, this remains painful as for today. The failures and twists on the road of true democratic model building has been painful and bitter experience during the 20 years for us, for all entire country. They led to loosening the state institutions. Hundreds of thousands of citizens raised their voices in the fight against injustice and impunity for crimes against people in all paths of the country. It became clear that democratization, the awakening of the masses towards controlling their destiny and family clan power are the sworn enemies. This was confirmed during the regime of Bakiev, that time around even more disastrous, in more pernicious forms of criminality and corruption swept through the country, embedded in the supreme power, the waves of raiding and redistribution of property, the most ruthless and arbitrarians of the family clan and structure, the repression of the opposition, the rampant shadow economy and drug trafficking and violence of the constitutional norms, the folding away of the democratic institutions and free press establishment of double standards in foreign and domestic policy. The authoritarian family clan periods of two presidential rules that accumulated enormous of economic and social problems and contradictions inevitably led to people's revolutions and fierce collisions. The April Revolution revealed all the problems, contradictions and conflicts in the society, including the interethnic relations. We have lost our hundreds of innocent people. Fires destroyed thousands of homes and small businesses. We have managed, with the help of friendly countries and international donors, to avert a humanitarian catastrophe. However, it is too early to speak about the sustainable peace and harmony in the society. It takes years and years to complete reconciliation, to return to a peaceful and calm peace and life. Here I would like to thank the government of Turkey, which has initiated first the conference in Kyrgyzstan for the reconciliation processes. Ladies and gentlemen, transitional term means adoption of new constitution and changing model of governance, holding transparent and democratic parliamentary elections, forming of the executive branch of power in line with new constitution, and reforming the judiciary system while making free of corruption individuals. The last stage is the presidential elections, which will take place on 30th October, just this Sunday, and founding of the peaceful power transmission tradition in our country. Thus, the legitimization of all system of this state governance will be completed. The new constitution, approved at the referendum on 27 June 2010, institutes the first parliamentarian republic in Central Asia. The interim government, only 3 months after accession to power, has transmitted its mandate to the elected president and take care government. All political parties, including oppositional and those representatives of troop regime, have had freedom for the participation in these elections. This began the new form of political culture in the country. We have been shown in the region a sample of free and fair election, and highly appreciated and accepted by the international community. The caretaker government succeeded in coping with its task. The year was closed without internal debt. Wages, pensions, and allowance were paid in time and fully, and GDP only declined by 1.2%, while the socio-economic situation got stabilized. Thus, the government that was formed by the coalition majority of the parliament at the end of the year obtained good conditions for launching its work with the new year was started particularly from the clean state. Nevertheless, the coalition government started its duties in the tough post-crisis period and applied incredible efforts in order to keep socio-economic stability and sustain the challenges of the vital decision on the issues of raising living standards for population, yet also dealing with the burden of the previous years. Unfortunately, during the last 20 years, we lost more than benefited and destroyed rather than constructed due to the reshuffling of the economic reforms. Often following the blindfold receipts, we practically lost a national industry. Total privatization took us the real deindustrialization of the country and now the productive capacities of giant industries destroyed or reprofiled for the different markets. The last 20 years we spent not only for dismantling but also for established the new productions on the ruins of previous years thanks to the energy, hard work and bold ideas of hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurs. Today we can see clearly the outlines of the progress in transport, energy, mining industry and agriculture sector of national economy. We see a rebuilding of clothing industry with 300,000 strong labor force and gaining our country branding in the new foreign markets is a brilliant example of our growth. The telecommunications industries average annual 20% of growth and our programmers successfully work as outsourced specialists for the world's big companies, demonstrate the great capacity of the economy that remains to be tapped. Here is a few figures on the economic development today. During the first half of this year, the GDP growth was 5.5%. That was achieved due to the rise of the industrial productions turnover with the growth rate 14% and the growth commodities and services turnover with the growth of 3.5%. The agriculture production grew as well. There has been considerable improvement in the national revenue generation during the first half of the year. The total volume of taxes collected grew by 25% and those of the custom duties by 46%. The forecasts of the government are optimistic and regards to the financial results of this year. Most importantly, the government is to maintain the trends and growth rates in the economy. The unprecedented increased wages for social sphere workers has been the most significant decision of this year. Our teachers, doctors, artisans and junior serving staff received the wages of 3 and 4 times higher than before. The government is planning the next stage of increasing the pensions and allowances. The budget has become social oriented and the social sector expenditures account for 41% of total charges. Today, a top priority task of governance is recovery of people trust and respect to authorities, not only towards the head of state, but also to the parliament, to the government, to the judicial system, to the law enforcement bodies and local administrations. The lack of trust got accumulated not only in 1 year, and its remedy may take more than 1 year. I would like to note that the parliamentary system of the government has considerably maintained the transparency, accountability to the authorities, to the society, despite a seeming chaos, lack of the systematic approach, and to recruiting public scandals. The long-awaited change of the governing personnel, including some ministers and some other high positions, began to take shape. To ensure transparency of the activities of the ministries and departments, we have begun to establish public supervisory boards. This is a new institution, and a lot of work is yet to be done for it to take roots of the achieves relevant effect. However, the efforts of public supervisory board membership are pleasant in the field of the budgetary transparency, the openness of the law enforcement agencies, and the information accessibility to the civil society and to the civil society members. In the center of public attention this day is the reform of judicial system. Over the past 20 years, attempts were made to reform the judicial system, but all of them were halted and everything was done to keep the judiciary in the bridle. The controllability of the judicial system became a custom. The judges are instructed on decision to be made by not only by the phone but by the invitations of the high offices. Corruption of the courts has undermined the fairness in the society, put down to the slope not only the economic future but the entire constitutional system of the country. Immediately, the next day after the 7th April, provisional government was under the pressure from large numbers of complaints, unjust decisions of the courts of their red tape. We dissolved the Constitutional Court, dismissed 10 judges of the Supreme Court. More than 40 local judges were released, so began with the processes of cleansing the system of dishonest judges. Today we have historical opportunity to really upgrade the judiciary, open the way for an honest, highly professional, always improving and growing indifferent citizens to all levels of judicial power. The country has 10,000 people without good experience in various legal specializations, including more than 2,800 licensed lawyers. Our universities annually release more than 4,000 lawyers in the different fields. The people have high demands on the authorities and some expectations that have not been betrayed. They paid for these changes at high price, over hundreds of lives of its heroes, in order to raise the authority of the courts, and they are now at the lower rows of the pool information that the courts have become the skeleton of the law and support the human rights. We need strong mass appeal, the formation of new judiciary, scrapping a corporate ligaments, corruption schemes, and phone law political patronage. We are told that the courts are just as the society is. Yet people are fed up with the current system of justice. We believe that success of and the country's stability and its future is firmly connected with the fair courts. In few days, the presidential election will take place. The high stakes and the rush around the presidential post clearly demonstrate the critical significance rather than magnificence of this position within the power structure. Even long before the election race, some of its participants declared their critical views about the new constitution and the necessity of changing the form of governance. We believe that each process requires a certain time. In order for the parliamentary system to reveal its efficiency, a rolling distance is required. Only historical time can demonstrate the evidence, advantages, and probable drawbacks of the parliamentary system for our social and economic development. Dear friends, dear guests, international development and disturbances have taken place during the last 20 years. The situation in the Central Asian region, complicated challenges and threats standing before the country require from us to strengthen the border security, to have military efficient army, highly mobilized force, authorities and ordinary citizens against acts of terrorism and extremism tricks. International terrorism actively involves for its operations domestic radical religious organization by involving in illegal religious and partial networks, actively spreading its instructions and information, especially via internet. Islamic extremists are imposing their ideas of the decisive change of the existing constitutional order with any means, including coercive actions. In 1999 and 2000, the Islamic movement of Uzbekistan has invaded Batken and Osh Oblast of the Kyrgyz Republic in order to create the Islamic Caliphate and the further spread of its influence in the region. Our soldiers fought against the international terrorists. They have shown courage and fortitude to the defended the homeland Kyrgyzstan. We in Kyrgyzstan are well aware that in this independent world of modern combat of any transnational threats, we must only be together in the unity of national efforts and the regional and global scale. All these years, at the ups and downs, the international community was with us. International financial institutions, countries such United States of America, Japan, Germany, Switzerland, and Turkey has always been supporting us and have had huge investment, financial and technical assistance. Kyrgyzstan's economy closely linked to the markets of Eurozone countries. Kyrgyzstan also member to the WTO. We believe that free movement of labor, resource, capital, services, and large Eurasian space are needed to Kyrgyzstan. Presidential election, which is to be held on 30th October, the big test closely watched by international community. Just as in 27th of June and October 10th, the world's attention was focused on our country. Today, the situation is still fragile, but I can say that we are confident that we are much stronger today. Thank you for your attention. I thank you very much, and I would like once again to express my deep gratitude for giving this opportunity for the leadership of the Turkic Alliance community here in the United States, for bringing us together and opening me such a good ground to speak with you, to be in touch with you, to share with Kyrgyzstan's experience, to share our cultural values, and I think your organization is doing a great job. Thank you very much.
Especially, I would like to point out our Chicago-based component organization, the Niagara Foundation. They have a strong relationship with the Kyrgyz community in Chicago. They organize always the connection with the Kyrgyz Americans. So thank you very much for Mr. Ambassador about your talk or overview about the situation. So it was a really short summary. So for the Q&A session, do we have any questions from the audience? I'd like to ask the first question, Mr. Ambassador, to you. You know, the democratization process you pointed out in your talk, so it takes time, you know, especially when you went through a very strong and troublesome process. So when you pass by all the laws and regulations to govern basically all the relationship with the government and the people, sometimes it's related with the people, the maturity of the people, how the people basically adopt those rules and regulations. Because we see that I'm from Turkey originally, so we see that in our country. So sometimes the laws and regulations in place, but sometimes it's depending on the people, how they basically understand and digest and basically they go by those rules and regulations. How about the Kyrgyz people? About especially this coming up new election, do you think it's going to be the bright and close to the idea of democracy at a certain point?
Thank you very much. Of course, Kyrgyzstan just after the gaining independence in 1991, so we are declared ourselves like a democratic country, and we declared that we share the value of the democracy with other democratic states, and we joined to the number of international and multilateral treaties. We joined to the United Nations. We signed and ratified so many pacts and international rules which requires from the government to follow up. In, for example, in the human rights area, so we adopted almost 15 main covenants which regulates the human rights issues, and Kyrgyzstan should follow. If we decided so to accept this law, so we should follow, and we should show the implementation of the process. The problem was that the government and the people was not able. The government was not able to implement all those covenants which we joined. For example, let's say the covenant on political and civil rights. So it's normal that if you are joining to these covenants, so then that your implementation will be every year reviewed by the international organization. And if you are not following, so then that the civil society should support the implementation process, and the governments, and that those countries which committed to support the country's implementation, so they spend money to the private sector and informing the civil society in the country that the government is violating that rules which has to be implemented. So this kind of situation we face in Kyrgyzstan. We, as I told, that we were joining almost, we are accepting all the obligations under the human rights issues. But the first president, the President Akayev, who committed himself to provide the reforms on democratic processes, who committed himself that he will push on Kyrgyzstan reforms to bring at the level of human rights standards at the international level. But at the same time, he failed to implement all those agreements. And in the people in Kyrgyzstan, he says, the most of Kyrgyz people says that the President Akayev, he did good job for the democracy, he did good job, but he tasted these reforms on himself because he was not able to implement. He joined to all the reforms, he joined all the international covenants, but he was not able to implement. And then, of course, the rest of the people, the rest of the voice of the people was not able to accept the violation, those rules and regulations and laws in the country which has been already adopted and the people supported.